They can't stop thinking about you. There comes a moment in life when you stop asking, "Do they remember me?" and begin realizing that some connections can never truly disappear. Have you ever wondered why, out of nowhere, someone from your past suddenly reaches out? Why an old memory unexpectedly returns to their mind? Why certain people can move on with their lives, yet somehow your name, your smile, your words, or even your silence keeps echoing in their thoughts? The answer is deeper than coincidence. Every meaningful encounter leaves an invisible imprint. We may walk away physically, but the emotional energy we create has a way of lingering long after the conversation ends. People rarely forget those who awakened something within them, those who inspired them, challenged them, comforted them, or revealed a version of themselves they had never seen before. The truth is, people do not spend their lives thinking about those who simply passed through. They remember those who changed something inside them. They remember the person who believed in them when no one else did. They remember the one who walked away with dignity instead of begging to stay. They remember the individual whose confidence, kindness, authenticity, and quiet strength became impossible to replace. Memories are not built on perfection. They are built on emotional significance. When your presence creates genuine emotion, your absence creates reflection. That reflection becomes remembrance, and remembrance often becomes an unshakable thought that returns again and again. But this message is not about trying to control another person's mind. It is not about manipulation, games, or chasing validation. It is about understanding one of life's greatest principles. The most unforgettable people are those who stop trying to be unforgettable. They become so deeply connected to their purpose, their growth, and their inner peace that their value naturally becomes impossible to ignore. There is an undeniable power in someone who knows who they are without needing constant reassurance from others. That kind of confidence speaks louder than words ever could. So if you've been wondering whether your presence mattered, whether your kindness made a difference, or whether someone still carries thoughts of you deep within their heart, this speech will offer a new perspective. Today, we will explore why some people simply cannot stop thinking about you, how emotional impact outlives physical presence, why silence often speaks louder than endless communication, and how becoming the highest version of yourself creates a lasting impression that no amount of time can erase. By the end of this journey, you may discover that the greatest power was never convincing someone to remember you. It was becoming someone who naturally leaves a mark wherever they go. Your energy never truly leaves someone who connected. With you, there is something extraordinary about genuine human connection that cannot be measured by time, distance, or even silence. People often believe that memories fade simply because months or years pass. But the deepest connections do not disappear with the calendar. They become part of a person's inner world. Think about your own life for a moment. Haven't there been people you suddenly remembered without any obvious reason? A familiar scent, a particular song, a quiet evening, or even a random thought can bring someone vividly back into your mind. This happens because meaningful experiences leave emotional imprints that are far stronger than ordinary memories. They become woven into the way we see ourselves and the world around us. If someone cannot stop thinking about you, it is rarely because of how often you spoke to them or how much time you spent together. It is because your presence awakened something within them that they had never experienced before. The energy you bring into another person's life is far more powerful than the words you speak. Anyone can offer compliments, promises, or temporary excitement, but very few people have a presence that makes others feel seen, understood, and accepted. When someone feels genuinely valued in your company, they carry that feeling long after you are gone. Human beings may forget exact conversations, but they almost never forget how someone made them feel. A person who brought peace into a season of chaos, confidence into a season of doubt, or hope into a season of despair becomes unforgettable because they were associated with transformation rather than routine. Every time life presents a similar emotion, the mind naturally returns to the person connected with that experience. This is why your influence can continue long after your physical presence has disappeared. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to make themselves impossible to forget. They constantly text, seek attention, post for validation, or attempt to stay visible at every opportunity. Ironically, this often produces the opposite effect. Familiarity without emotional depth quickly becomes background noise. The people who remain unforgettable are usually those who never tried to force themselves into someone else's thoughts. They simply lived authentically. They listened without judgment. They loved without conditions. They encouraged without expecting applause. Their authenticity created an emotional experience that could not be manufactured. There is a quiet strength in someone who is fully present without demanding recognition, and that strength often leaves the deepest impression. Your energy is not merely the expression on your face or the tone of your voice. It is the atmosphere you create wherever you go. Some people enter a room and fill it with tension. Others enter and immediately bring calm. Some spread fear, while others awaken courage. Your energy becomes your signature, silently communicating your beliefs, your confidence, your compassion, and your emotional stability before you even begin speaking. That invisible signature stays with people. They may not always understand why they think about you, but what they're really remembering is how they felt when they were around you. The emotional atmosphere you created continues to exist inside their memory. There is also a profound truth that many overlook. People often recognize your value most clearly after your absence. While you are consistently present, your kindness, patience, encouragement, and emotional support can become familiar. But once those gifts are no longer available, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Suddenly they notice the peace that disappeared with you. They recognize the encouragement they once took for granted. They begin comparing every new interaction with the emotional experience they had in your presence. This comparison is not something you create intentionally. It happens naturally because authentic connection cannot easily be replaced. This is why chasing people is never necessary. When your worth depends on convincing someone to think about you, you unknowingly communicate insecurity rather than confidence. But when you continue growing, learning, serving, and becoming the best version of yourself, you create an influence that extends beyond words. Your absence begins to speak on your behalf. Instead of asking whether they remember you, you become someone whose character quietly answers the question without needing proof. Your life itself becomes the reminder. The greatest mistake people make is believing they must become perfect to become unforgettable. Perfection has never been the foundation of lasting memories. Authenticity is. Imperfect people who love sincerely, encourage generously, remain emotionally honest, and stand firmly in their values leave deeper impressions than those who carefully construct flawless images. People connect with what is real. They remember the conversations that touched their hearts, the moments when someone believed in them despite their fears, and the quiet acts of kindness that arrived when they needed them most. These experiences cannot be erased because they become part of a person's emotional story. So never underestimate the impact of simply being your highest self. Every act of compassion, every moment of genuine presence, every word of encouragement, and every decision to remain authentic plants seeds in the hearts of others. Some will recognize your value immediately, while others may only understand it after time has passed. Either way, what is real leaves a lasting mark. Your energy continues speaking even when your voice is silent. Your character continues influencing even when your path moves in a different direction. And if someone cannot stop thinking about you, it is not because you demanded their attention. It is because your presence became a chapter in their life that could never truly be rewritten or forgotten. The most powerful legacy you can leave is not making people remember your name. It is leaving them with a feeling so meaningful that every time they encounter courage, peace, love, or hope, a part of them remembers the person who first awakened those qualities within them. Detachment is what makes you irresistible. One of the greatest paradoxes in life is that the harder you try to hold on to someone, the more likely they are to slip away while the moment you release your desperate need for their attention, something remarkable begins to happen. They notice your absence. They wonder what changed. They begin asking questions that never crossed their mind when they knew you would always be there. This is not because detachment is a trick or a strategy to manipulate another person's emotions. It is because genuine detachment transforms you from the inside out. It shifts your focus away from seeking approval and redirects it toward building a life that is meaningful, fulfilling, and deeply rooted in self-respect. The energy of someone who is complete within themselves is naturally attractive because it communicates confidence instead of need, abundance instead of lack, and peace instead of emotional dependence. Many people mistakenly believe that love is proven by constant pursuit. They think they must always be available, always sending another message, always explaining themselves, always convincing someone to stay. Yet history repeatedly shows that people value what they are free to choose, not what constantly demands their attention. When your happiness becomes dependent on another person's response, you unknowingly hand them the power to determine your emotional state. Every delayed reply feels like rejection. Every misunderstanding feels like a crisis. Every moment of silence becomes something to fear. Living this way drains your confidence because your inner peace is no longer yours. It is placed in someone else's hands. True freedom begins when you reclaim that peace and recognize that your value has never depended on anyone else's recognition. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It does not mean becoming cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. Real detachment means loving without losing yourself. It means appreciating another person while refusing to abandon your own dreams, identity, and purpose. It means understanding that you can deeply value someone while also accepting that you cannot control their thoughts, choices, or timing. This kind of emotional maturity creates an incredible sense of stability. Instead of reacting to every circumstance, you begin responding with wisdom. Instead of chasing what seems to be moving away, you continue moving toward your own growth. Ironically, this quiet confidence often becomes the very quality that others find impossible to ignore. Think about the people who naturally draw others toward them. They rarely appear desperate for attention. They are not constantly trying to impress everyone around them. They carry themselves with quiet assurance because they know who they are. They have goals that inspire them, values that guide them, and a sense of purpose that keeps them moving forward regardless of who comes or goes. Their confidence is not built on popularity but on self-awareness. They understand that relationships should enrich life, not become the entire foundation of it. This balanced perspective creates an emotional magnetism that cannot be faked because it comes from genuine inner security. When you stop chasing, something else begins to grow within you, clarity. Instead of spending every waking moment wondering what another person is thinking, you start asking more important questions. Are you becoming the person you were created to be? Are you investing in your talents? Are you strengthening your character? Are you creating a life that fills you with purpose and joy? These questions shift your attention from external validation to internal transformation. As your confidence grows, so does your ability to attract healthier relationships because you are no longer searching for someone to complete you. You are inviting someone to complement the life you are already building. There is also an undeniable mystery surrounding someone who knows when to let go. Silence often speaks more powerfully than endless explanations. When you stop trying to force people to understand your worth, you give them the opportunity to discover it on their own. Some will recognize it immediately, others may only realize it after experiencing your absence. Either way, your peace is no longer dependent on the outcome. You have learned that your responsibility is to become your best self, not to manage someone else's perception of you. This shift removes enormous emotional pressure and replaces it with quiet confidence. It is important to remember that detachment is not about pretending not to care. Pretending is exhausting because it requires constant performance. Genuine detachment is different. It comes from trusting that what is truly meant for your life will not require you to abandon your dignity, or sacrifice your self-respect. It allows you to love wholeheartedly without living in fear of loss. Instead of clinging to every possibility, you become open to whatever aligns with your highest good. This openness creates emotional resilience because your hope is rooted in your own growth rather than in someone else's decisions. As you continue investing in yourself, people begin noticing changes they cannot easily explain. They see greater confidence in your words, greater peace in your actions, and greater joy in the way you live. You are no longer trying to prove your worth because you have already accepted it. That acceptance changes everything. The person who once overlooked you may begin wondering why you seem different. Those who expected you to remain available at every moment may suddenly realize your attention is now directed toward your own purpose. What they are responding to is not distance alone, it is transformation. Growth has a way of making people pay attention because it reflects a strength that cannot be borrowed or imitated. So if you truly want to become unforgettable, stop measuring your value by who calls, who texts, or who constantly thinks about you. Measure it by the person you are becoming every single day. Continue learning, continue growing, continue serving others with kindness, and continue protecting your peace. The more complete you become within yourself, the less you will feel the need to chase anyone. And in that very moment, you will discover one of life's greatest truths. The people who leave the deepest impression are not the ones who desperately seek attention, but the ones who radiate quiet confidence, unwavering self-respect, and genuine inner peace. That kind of presence cannot be forced, cannot be manufactured, and cannot be forgotten. It is the natural result of a life built from the inside out, and that is exactly why they can't stop thinking about you. The mind always returns to what changed it there is a remarkable truth about the human mind that explains why some people are remembered long after they have disappeared from our daily lives. The mind does not cling to ordinary moments, it clings to transformation. We may forget hundreds of routine conversations, countless familiar faces, and ordinary experiences, but we rarely forget the people who changed the way we think, the way we see ourselves, or the way we experience life. A single conversation that awakens hope can outweigh years of casual interaction. One moment of genuine understanding can become more unforgettable than 1,000 empty words. That is because transformation creates an emotional imprint, and the human mind is naturally drawn back to the moments that reshaped its reality. Think about your own journey. There are probably people you have not spoken to in years, yet their words still echo in your thoughts. Perhaps someone believed in you when you doubted yourself. Perhaps someone challenged you to become stronger when you were ready to give up. Maybe one person showed you a level of kindness you had never experienced before, or perhaps they inspired you to see possibilities where you had only seen limitations. Their physical presence may have faded into the past, but the impact they made continues to influence your decisions today. This is the incredible power of emotional significance. It survives distance, silence, and even time itself because it becomes part of who you are. The same principle works in every meaningful relationship. People cannot stop thinking about someone who awakened something within them. It may have been confidence, peace, courage, ambition, compassion, or a new understanding of love. Whatever it was, it altered their internal world. Once the mind has experienced genuine transformation, it naturally revisits the source of that change. Not because it is trapped in the past, but because it is trying to understand the experience that shifted its perspective so profoundly. This is why certain names suddenly appear in our thoughts without warning. They are connected to moments that changed us, and the mind instinctively returns to those moments whenever similar emotions arise. Many people believe they become unforgettable by trying to be impressive. They focus on appearance, status, popularity, or constant attention. While these things may attract temporary interest, they rarely create lasting remembrance. What remains unforgettable is authenticity combined with meaningful impact. People remember the individual who encouraged them when everyone else criticized them. They remember the one who listened without judgment when no one else seemed to care. They remember the person who refused to give up on them when they were ready to give up on themselves. These moments cannot be replaced because they touch something far deeper than the surface. They reach the heart, and whatever reaches the heart often remains in the memory for a lifetime. There is also something powerful about personal growth that causes others to think about you long after your paths have separated. When someone witnesses your determination, your resilience, or your willingness to rise after disappointment, they carry that image with them. Every time they face a challenge of their own, your example quietly returns to their mind. They remember how you handled adversity. They remember your courage during uncertainty. They remember the hope you carried when circumstances suggested surrender. Without realizing it, your life became a reference point for their own decisions. That is influence in its purest form, not forcing people to follow you, but inspiring them to become stronger because they encountered your example. Sometimes people only recognize the depth of your impact after you are no longer present in their daily lives. While you were there, your encouragement may have seemed ordinary. Your kindness may have been expected. Your wisdom may have been overlooked because it was always available. But once your voice becomes silent, they begin noticing the difference. They realize how often your presence brought peace into difficult situations. They recognize how your optimism changed the atmosphere around them. They start comparing every new experience with the emotional security they once found in your company. This realization is often what keeps someone thinking about you long after you have moved forward with your own life. This is why it is so important to focus on becoming a person of substance rather than a person of appearance. Appearances fade, trends change, and popularity comes and goes, but character leaves permanent fingerprints on the lives of others. Integrity, compassion, wisdom, patience, and authenticity create transformations that no amount of time can erase. When you consistently live according to your values, you influence people in ways you may never fully understand. Some will never tell you how much your words meant to them. Others may never reveal how your example gave them strength during their darkest moments. Yet your impact continues quietly beneath the surface, shaping decisions and inspiring courage long after the moment has passed. It is equally important to understand that not every transformation is dramatic. Sometimes the smallest acts produce the greatest influence. A sincere compliment offered at exactly the right time can restore someone's confidence. A few words of encouragement can inspire a person to pursue a dream they almost abandoned. A simple act of kindness can restore someone's faith in humanity after countless disappointments. These moments may seem ordinary to you, but they can become extraordinary in someone else's memory. The mind treasures experiences that create emotional breakthroughs, regardless of how small they appeared in the moment. So instead of asking yourself whether someone is thinking about you today, ask a far more meaningful question. What kind of impact am I leaving wherever I go? Are your words building people up or tearing them down? Are your actions inspiring hope or spreading discouragement? Are you living in a way that helps others discover the best version of themselves? These are the questions that shape a truly unforgettable life. When you become someone who consistently brings light into the lives of others, your influence extends far beyond the moment. Your presence becomes a turning point in another person's story. The greatest reason they cannot stop thinking about you is not because you demanded attention or constantly reminded them of your existence. It is because your life created a meaningful change within them. You expanded their vision, strengthened their spirit, awakened their courage, or reminded them of their own worth. The mind always returns to what changed it, because transformation leaves a mark that time cannot erase. And when your presence becomes part of someone's personal growth, you no longer exist only in their memories. You become part of the person they are still becoming. Silence speaks louder than constant contact. There is a quiet power in silence that many people never fully understand. In a world where everyone is encouraged to constantly explain themselves, defend their choices, send another message, make another phone call, or desperately fight for someone's attention, silence often feels uncomfortable. Yet some of the greatest lessons, the deepest realizations, and the strongest emotions are born not from endless words, but from meaningful absence. When you are always available, your presence can easily become expected. But when you learn to step back with dignity, your absence creates space for reflection. That reflection often becomes the moment when people finally recognize your true value. Silence is not weakness, it is confidence expressed without the need for constant explanation. Many people believe that if they stop reaching out, they will simply be forgotten. That fear causes them to overextend themselves, constantly trying to remain present in someone else's life. They continue sending messages that receive little enthusiasm, making excuses for those who rarely reciprocate, and chasing relationships that have become emotionally one-sided. The more they pursue, the more exhausted they become. Ironically, this endless pursuit often prevents the other person from ever appreciating what they have. Familiarity without gratitude easily becomes taken for granted. When someone believes you will always be there regardless of how they treat you, they rarely pause to recognize your true importance. It is only when your constant presence is replaced by respectful silence that they begin to notice what is missing. Silence creates something that words often cannot create: curiosity. When someone who was always available suddenly becomes focused on their own purpose, growth, and peace, people naturally begin asking questions. They wonder what changed. They wonder where your attention has gone. They wonder why your energy no longer revolves around seeking their approval. These questions are not created by manipulation or emotional games. They arise because human nature notices change. The absence of constant pursuit creates room for appreciation, and appreciation often begins where entitlement ends. There is an important difference between silence that comes from resentment and silence that comes from inner peace. Silence rooted in anger is often an attempt to punish someone. It waits for a reaction, hoping the other person will feel guilty enough to return. But peaceful silence is completely different. It is not a weapon, it is wisdom. It is the decision to stop forcing what no longer flows naturally. It is choosing self-respect over endless explanation. It is understanding that your worth does not increase because someone finally notices it. Your value has always existed. Silence simply allows others the opportunity to recognize what was already there. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet are not those who always have the perfect argument or the final word. They are the ones who know when words are no longer necessary. They understand that not every misunderstanding requires a debate. Not every criticism deserves a response. Not every rejection needs to be challenged. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is continuing to live your life with grace, confidence, and purpose, while allowing your actions to speak louder than your explanations. Character always has a stronger voice than endless conversation. When you stop trying to convince people of your worth, something remarkable begins to happen within you. Your emotional energy is no longer consumed by proving yourself. Instead, it becomes available for your own growth. You begin investing in your dreams, strengthening your character, expanding your knowledge, improving your health, deepening your relationships with those who genuinely value you, and building a life that reflects your highest potential. This transformation changes the way you carry yourself. Your confidence no longer depends on external validation because it is rooted in the quiet knowledge that your purpose is greater than any single person's opinion. People notice this change. They may not immediately understand it, but they can feel it. Confidence that comes from inner peace has a presence that cannot be imitated. Silence also allows memory to do its work. When you are constantly present, there is little room for reflection because new interactions replace old ones almost immediately. But when your voice becomes quiet, people begin replaying previous conversations. They remember your kindness during difficult times. They remember the encouragement you offered when they doubted themselves. They remember the laughter, the wisdom, the comfort, and even the challenges that helped them grow. In your absence, the emotional significance of those moments often becomes clearer than it ever was during your presence. What once seemed ordinary now feels irreplaceable because distance has revealed its true value. This does not mean every person will suddenly return, nor should that be your goal. Silence is not about creating an emotional trap for someone else. It is about freeing yourself from the exhausting need to control outcomes. Some people will recognize your value and seek to reconnect. Others may continue walking their own path. Either way, your peace remains intact because you have learned a lesson that changes everything. Your identity is not determined by who stays or who leaves. It is determined by the integrity, purpose, and authenticity with which you live each day. As you continue moving forward, you will discover that your quiet consistency speaks louder than endless promises. Your discipline becomes louder than your excuses. Your growth becomes louder than your complaints. Your kindness becomes louder than your anger. Your peace becomes louder than your desperation. This silent transformation becomes impossible to ignore because people are naturally drawn to those who embody stability in a world filled with chaos. They begin to wonder how you became so calm, so focused, and so confident. The answer is simple. You stopped chasing what could not be forced and started building what could never be taken away. So never underestimate the language of silence. It has the ability to reveal truth, restore dignity, and create space for genuine appreciation. Sometimes the greatest influence you will ever have comes not from saying one more word, but from allowing your life to become your message. Continue walking with confidence. Continue growing with purpose. Continue loving without losing yourself. Let your actions reveal your character more clearly than your explanations ever could. In the end, the people who cannot stop thinking about you are often the ones who finally realized worth, your worth, when your silence gave them the opportunity to hear what your constant presence had been saying all along. Become the version of yourself they never expected. The greatest surprise you can ever give the people who once underestimate you is not revenge, anger, or the desperate need to prove them wrong. It is becoming a version of yourself they never imagined possible. There is something incredibly powerful about a person who chooses growth over bitterness, purpose over distraction, and self-improvement over resentment. While many people spend years waiting for an apology, hoping someone will finally recognize their worth, truly extraordinary individuals make a different decision. They stop waiting for permission to live fully. They stop allowing the opinions of others to define their future. They realize that the greatest victory is not changing someone else's mind. It is transforming their own life. And when that transformation becomes visible, people naturally begin thinking about the person you have become, because your growth tells a story they never expected to witness. Too often, people make the mistake of placing their lives on hold while waiting for someone else to return. They postpone dreams, delay opportunities, and ignore their own potential because their attention remains fixed on the past. Every day becomes another day spent wondering, will they call? Will they miss me? Will they finally realize what they lost? But these questions quietly steal the present moment. They keep you emotionally tied to circumstances that no longer deserve your energy. The moment you decide to redirect that energy toward your own growth, everything begins to change. Instead of living for someone else's reaction, you begin living for your own purpose. That single decision becomes the turning point between merely existing and truly thriving. Growth has a remarkable quality that cannot be hidden. You do not have to announce it. You do not need to convince anyone that you have changed. Genuine transformation reveals itself naturally. It appears in the confidence with which you carry yourself. It is reflected in the peace that replaces constant anxiety. It shines through the discipline that now guides your daily choices. It becomes visible in the kindness you continue to show despite past disappointments. People notice when someone becomes emotionally stronger, mentally wiser, and spiritually more grounded. They may not understand exactly how it happened, but they recognize that something is different. That quiet transformation often becomes unforgettable because it challenges every expectation they once had about you. There is an important truth that many people overlook. Your future should never be limited by another person's inability to recognize your value. Sometimes people fail to appreciate you, not because you lacked worth, but because they lacked the perspective to see it. Their misunderstanding does not reduce your potential. Their rejection does not erase your gifts. Their absence does not cancel your purpose. Too many talented, compassionate, and extraordinary individuals spend years trying to convince the wrong people of their value instead of investing that energy into becoming everything they were capable of becoming. The moment you stop seeking validation from those who cannot offer it, you create space for limitless personal growth. Every challenge you have faced has the potential to become part of your greatest strength. The disappointment that once made you question yourself can become the experience that teaches resilience. The rejection that once broke your heart can become the motivation to discover your true identity. The silence that once felt painful can become the peaceful solitude where your vision for the future takes shape. Life has a remarkable way of transforming pain into purpose when you refuse to remain trapped by yesterday's circumstances. Instead of asking why difficult experiences happen, begin asking how they can prepare you for something greater. That question changes everything because it shifts your focus from loss to possibility. The most unforgettable people are not those who never experienced failure. They are the ones who refuse to let failure define them. They continue learning when others quit. They continue believing when circumstances appear impossible. They continue showing kindness in a world that often encourages bitterness. They continue pursuing excellence even when no one is watching. This consistency builds a character that commands respect without demanding attention. People begin thinking about you not because you sought recognition, but because your life demonstrates what determination, courage, and authenticity truly look like. Your example quietly inspires others to believe that change is possible in their own lives as well. As you continue becoming the highest version of yourself, something extraordinary begins to happen. You no longer feel the constant need to know who is thinking about you, because your attention is directed toward the life you are creating. Ironically, this is often when people begin thinking about you the most. They notice your confidence where insecurity once existed. They see your peace where anxiety once ruled. They witness your success where they expected surrender. They recognize that while they remained focused on the past, you were quietly building a future. Your transformation becomes impossible to ignore because it reflects a level of inner strength that cannot be imitated or borrowed. There will always be people who underestimated your potential. Some may have doubted your dreams. Others may have questioned your abilities or assumed you would never recover from disappointment. Let them think what they choose. Your responsibility is not to spend your life correcting every misunderstanding. Your responsibility is to continue becoming the person you were created to be. Every book you read, every skill you develop, every act of discipline you practice, every obstacle you overcome, and every step you take toward your purpose becomes evidence of your transformation. Over time, your results will speak more powerfully than any explanation ever could. Remember that true greatness is not measured by how many people admire you. It is measured by the positive impact your life has on those around you. As you grow, you gain the ability to encourage others who are facing the same struggles you once endured. Your victories become proof that setbacks do not have to become permanent. Your compassion deepens because you understand pain. Your wisdom grows because you have learned through experience. Your confidence becomes authentic because it has been tested by adversity rather than built on comfort. This is the kind of influence that leaves a lasting legacy. It is not about impressing people, it is about inspiring them. So if you truly want to become unforgettable, stop asking how you can stay in someone's thoughts and start asking how you can become the greatest version of yourself. Invest in your mind, strengthen your character, protect your peace, pursue your purpose with unwavering commitment. Let every disappointment become fuel for growth instead of an excuse to stop believing. Continue moving forward with humility, courage, and gratitude. When you choose transformation over resentment and purpose over regret, you become someone whose story cannot be ignored. They may remember your words, they may remember your smile, and they may remember the moments you shared together, but what they will never forget is the incredible person you became. In the end, the reason they cannot stop thinking about you is not because you waited for them to notice you. It is because you became someone extraordinary while fearlessly moving toward the life you were always meant to live.